Hi, in this video I would like to show how you can use commercetools Nodejs SDK to get started. So I have this getting started guide here, so let's follow that. Okay, so this tutorial will show you how to use middlewares in this commercetools Node SDK to get simple commercetools Node app running. Okay, create an API client. And here's the documentation from Node.js, and it's referencing to create a new API client, navigate to settings, developer settings, new API client, and it's referencing from the merchant center, and I already have a merchant center account. And if you don't have merchant center account and there's a free trial, you can create it here. And so let's get started. So I'm gonna go to developer settings, and this I'm gonna create a new API client. I'm gonna select admin client and demo Nodejs SDK. Also include my name in the beginning. API client. So now I have this API client information. Of course, this is I'm gonna delete this API client after the demo, but this is for your reference. And we have it here, getting client credentials to use a commercetools API from the API client details page. A previous step: copy this project key, API URL, scope, and auth URL. And this is my API client details, and project key, client ID, secret, scope, API URL, auth URL. So I'm gonna keep this open, and let's see what is the next step. And commercetools API uses client ID and client secret to authenticate the request your app makes. Okay, in the later step you'll be asked to use these values in your code. Okay, so I've opened this so we can use this later stage. And set up your local project, and I'm gonna copy this. I already have my empty folder ready, demo getting started. So I'm gonna create a node project that should create my package.json, and currently I don't have any dependencies. Let's see. After you have done, you will have a new package.json in your directory, yes, and install commercetools node modules for this Nodejs SDK. And this is SDK client, SDK middleware auth, SDK middleware HTTP, API request builder, and .env packages to save it to your package.json dependencies using the following command. So I'm going to use this command to add these dependencies into my project. I'm going to run this. It's going to download these packages, and we have these packages, and these are commercetools specific: API request builder, SDK client, SDK middleware auth, SDK middleware HTTP. Okay, now the next step is create a new file called project.js in this directory and add the following code. I'm gonna create a new file called project.js here. So now I have this project.js file, and I'm gonna copy this. So what all those? It's a create client, create request builder, create auth middleware for client credentials flow, and create HTTP middleware. So we are just getting these from these modules, and node fetch, and .env for later accessing the environment variable instead of hard coding this client ID and client secrets. And it says back to command line, run the command line, main command. And I'm gonna clear this. I see getting started with commercetools Nodejs SDK. If you see the same output as above, we are ready to start. So the initial step is done. So let's move to the next step. Get commercetools project information with commercetools API. In this guide, we will get a project information. We will also follow the best practices to keep secrets outside of your code and code sensitive data. Store client ID and client secret in the environment variable. Create a new file called .env in this directory and add the following code. So I'm going to create an environment.env file, and I'm going to copy this and replace the values with your client ID and client secret that you copied earlier. So that's where they're referencing the place here. So I've opened my client ID, my API client details, and copy this and secret, put this information. I've got copied now. This is done, and reopen the project.js and add the following code. This is my project.js, and it says I have to add these values or these code into my project file, and let's see what are this. So this is a place where I get my admin client ID and client secret from env environment variable, and this node module helps me to .env helps me to get this admin client ID and admin client secrets from process environment. And let's see what it says. Replace the value, your project key, your auth URL, your client scope, and your API URL with your client project key, API URL, scope, and auth URL that you copied earlier. Okay, so let me go back to my project key. I need to get my project key. I'm going to replace this project key and your auth URL. And this is my auth URL. Replace it. And the client scope. So this is my scope. I'm going to copy this scope here. And your API URL. This is my API URL. Okay, looks like I copied everything. Let's go back to the page again. Replace this code creates a client which uses an auth middleware and HTTP middleware. Let's see what is this. It creates a client. Create client, and which uses the auth middleware and HTTP middleware. Auth middleware, it's for authentication. Every time the commercetools API makes a request and it has to authenticate, so it takes care of authentication, and HTTP middleware takes care of the HTTP requests. So let's take a look into auth middleware. Auth middleware as the host, the authentication URL, the project key and client credentials, and the scope of this project, and the fetch. And HTTP middleware is what's the API endpoint, and they use the fetch for the requests. And there's a project service. It's mainly used to construct or to create a request URI to get a project endpoint for this particular project key, commercetools API to get a endpoint for project. It's this constructs, and we need to find out in this create a get project request, and this is a request, constructing the request here for the project information. That's what we want to do using Nodejs SDK of commercetools API. We want to get a project information using the Nodejs SDK. And in the environment variables, okay, the code creates a client credentials with this one. So middleware reads the client ID and client secrets from the environment variables. Then client will execute to get the project information request. So here is the client execution using the request for the project we created from this previous step. And if it is successful, it outputs the project information. If it's an error, get an error. If it gets an error, and this marks the end of the execution. Let's see if it works what we expected. And that also says that run the program. The output should look like the following if the request is successful. So getting served and project information, got project information. So I'm gonna run this again. Yes, I see this get started with commercetools SDK and a project information, which has information about my project, and got project information. This is the end. So this is it, and then we are able to get the project information using commercetools API and with Nodejs SDK. I hope this is helpful. Thank you.